Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Welcome to the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast. We talk about wrestling news and various topics from different promotions, primarily AEW, but also New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, and topics from around the wrestling world. Whatever we find interesting, and we hope you will too. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find our content on our podcast feed, the Social Suplex Podcast feed, as well as on Twitter, YouTube, and Blue Sky. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We also encourage you to check out the Social Suplex newsletter, which is published every month and available at socialsuplex.com. It contains crazy news, features on about dozens of promotions across the world with some unbelievable, I think the best Japanese coverage of anybody out there that's doing it right now. Trish, when is the next newsletter coming out?
So we've just had one out quite recently, just a couple of weeks ago. And we also had a long feature on Diana. Eric interviewed the president of Japanese Independent Diana, as well as a few of the wrestlers while out in Kawasaki. So that's a great look into how you have to work really hard to get those sort of things done in terms of working with Japanese promotions, and also a great introduction to promotion. So please check that out.
Very good work by Eric there. So today is Monday, June 8th, 2026. And tonight, Trish and I are going to start off by going a little bit back in time. I'm going to date myself with a reference there. It's diddly hoop, diddly hoop, diddly. You can't see me, but I am doing the hand gestures. This is a topic that Trish and I decided, and like, if you guys think we don't put thought into this podcast, you're wrong, because Trish and I 6 months ago decided we were going to make this a topic, and we've had a calendar counting down to when this was going to happen. Because 6 months ago, and obviously, and 5 months and 24 days, 27 days, because it's actually December 13th was John Cena's last match, right? And we are doing a 6-month retrospective, which was inspired by an episode of Wrestling Observer Radio that Trish and I listened to right after John Cena's final match, which was on a Saturday night main event from Washington, D.C. And this episode of Wrestling Observer Radio caused me to lose giant amounts of my tiny little mind. And Trish was also much more reasonably so, because she is British, worked up as well. And so we were like, we're coming back to this. We're not going to let this one go. So we put it on the calendar, and I said last week, it's time. Let's do it. It's a couple days early, but what the hell? We're going for it.
It's not like it's going to make any difference.
No, 5 days. Yeah. Maybe Gunther will become a giant star. Maybe
on SmackDown in where?
On
where are they this
SmackDown on
week?
Friday. Or where? Yeah, I don't know where the fuck they are this weekend. Maybe he'll do something Friday night that'll be unbelievable.
Sure.
Basically, this is one of those things, right? So in preparation for this, I actually went back and listened to this Wrestling Observer Radio, because in my mind, on this episode of the show, Dave Meltzer essentially said that John Cena's retirement, you couldn't decide if it was good or bad until 6 months later. Right. And that was what my mental brain has been hanging on to for the last 6 months. And I was like, I always want to check myself with that stuff, because we're the most unreliable narrators to ourselves. Quite often we recall, any human being does this. You recall something and you're like, that's exactly what happened. And then later you're like, oh, that's not what happened. So I went back this weekend and I listened to, I thought it was the Wrestling Observer Radio that came out on the Saturday night after Saturday Night Main Event. But it turned out it was actually the Wrestling Observer Radio that was on the Monday after the Raw for Saturday Night's Main Event. So I went back back and listened to the sections on the John Cena retirement from both of these shows. And then I sat down and watched Clash in Italy, or at least the first 25 minutes of it.
All 11 minutes of Gunther Cody Rhodes.
All 11 minutes of Gunther Cody Rhodes. Because I kind of wanted to see where we were at, and I even pulled up Cage Match. So there's a lot of research that went into this show this week, folks. Really, a lot of research. And what happened was when I went back and listened to these Wrestling Observer radios, it turns out that my brain absolutely amplified what Dave said, right? Dave in no way said that we couldn't figure out if the show was good or bad for 6 months. He did not say that at all. What he said in retrospect, it was over the course of 2 shows, right? So Dave made it very clear on the first show after the Cena retirement that he thought the match was I can't remember what the language was that he said in there. The match was the match. It was as good as it was going to be, which I thought was, Jesus, we're just really praising the hell out of this. He really liked the retirement angle, but he did not like the fact that Cena lost his last match. And he was pretty clear about that, but in that kind of vague Dave-ish way where he doesn't really want to go in hard against something. He sort of wants to damn it, but he's like, well, it was not what I would have done. He said that over and over again. And honestly, this is where sometimes Dave Meltzer just really reminds me of my mother, because that's exactly what she would say to me. Like, it's not what I would have done. Like, she's not going to come out and say it sucked. Well, I wouldn't have worn that. Well, no, you wouldn't have. But I thought one of the things that is difficult about this is, like, we've talked about this before, Trish, sometimes criticizing Dave Meltzer is in some ways like criticizing AEW, because the man takes so much undeserved shit from so many terrible people on the internet, and those like weirdos who just get really obsessed with something and like won't let it go. And to the point where I was like, am I becoming one of these weirdos that I'm like obsessed with the fact that he said that we could look at this in 6 months, and like, then you start to doubt like what you're doing, but it was fine. But I do think that because Dave takes so much garbage and bullshit from people who are really don't listen or read what he has to say, don't pay any attention to what he's doing, it can become very difficult to have an actual nuanced critique sometimes of the way he covers wrestling or the way he reviews wrestling. The fact that there's like a mixture of reviews and news and editorial that he sort of all throws together in the newsletter in a kind of weird jumbled heap that is impossible sometimes to break down as to like, are you sharing a news item? Are you editorially talking about something? Are you telling us how you felt about something? It's very difficult to parse that out, especially on the audio.
But I would say in this one, it's not so much about what he's said. What he's saying is he's looking at what you do in history and you say, okay, you make this decision, right? And it's how you follow up will determine kind of how it is seen. And was it worth it? Because when you're saying it's not what I would have done, well, you're saying that, okay, so they've made a call that kind of goes against what you think was be successful. So therefore, will it be worth it, or will it be worth more than what they could have just done by just having Cena win?
Right.
Everyone goes home happy. All those people that paid crazy amounts of money for that show in DC
feel like they got something worth it and are willing to spend that money again.
Yeah, because that's the huge thing right now, right? People chase memorable experiences. They chase, like, I was there for this moment in a way that even more so than any way that I can think of in any recent decade, really. So they are willing to spend that sort of thing on something where they think there's some value to it, there's something memorable to it. So it's something to say, I was there for Cena's last match, but it would maybe have been more especially to a lot of people attendees, you think about all the feedback straight afterwards to say, I was there to see like his last match and how much and how much everybody enjoyed the triumph rather than everybody left in silence or booed the creative or booed Paul Levesque when he came to the ring.
Right. I think this is part of why I found, and listening to these 2 shows back to back again, I remembered why I think the 6-month line hit me as hard as it did, because I was so frustrated with the way that Dave was sort of covering this and sort of how I felt. One of the things I find frustrating is Dave gets so much criticism for being like an AEW shill, but I personally find that he is much less harsh on WWE than I think he should be. I mean, being someone who's watched, matches that he's given high star ratings to, that I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how do you rate this highly? This was boring as hell. Like, I don't, things he said, which is fine. Like, that people, it's entirely subjective, and I agree to disagree. But I think one of the things that frustrated me so much about this was how unwilling Dave was to sort of say that this was a good or a bad show. He talked about the negativity around this. He talked about how he thought that the exhibition matches didn't feel like they had any stakes. He talked about how the match was was fine. He talked about how he really enjoyed the end ceremony of Cena's actual retirement, but he really sort of talked around the things he didn't like about it. And I thought this was really, to juxtapose this with the shows he did after Sting's retirement and after Tanahashi's retirement, really kind of underline that. Because in both of those Wrestling Observer radios, at no point is Dave like, well, he doesn't hedge. He doesn't say we have to wait 6 months. He doesn't say we have to see. He doesn't do any of that. It's flat out, this was incredible. This was amazing. This was spectacular. To be fair, he also took issue with Tanahashi losing his last match to Okada. He felt Tanahashi should have won. He made the same arguments, which I have to say that because, it's fair. But at the same time, he didn't kind of say that, well, we have to sort of wait and see. And from my mind, that in a way is kind of like, if you're not willing to come out full-throated to say you really, really liked it, then can you say it was good? I don't know. That's where I get frustrated with the tone of some of that coverage that we get from Wrestling Observer Radio about WWE. To Brian Alvarez's credit, when he doesn't like something, he flat out says he doesn't like it. He doesn't sort of hedge about it and say, well, this was not what they were trying to do, or it was so-and-so's decision, or yada, yada, yada. So, all right, so let me go into exactly what he said here. So I'm going to skip the sections on from the Wrestling Observer Radio from December 14th, because I think I kind of pretty much covered that it was really a lot of talking about not liking the ending and talking about the ending. So the Wrestling Observer Radio from December 16th was the Monday night, and it was after Raw. And Gunther on that Raw gave a big promo to open the show, and he got huge heel heat. He got booed like crazy, which Dave was very clear that the reaction to Gunther was a reason to do the finish where Gunther beat John Cena, which is something, again, he talked about the night before he didn't like it. He says, so this is how he starts this. This is not anything that we can judge for 6 months or so. If and again, I don't jump to the conclusion that night. I mean, I would not have beaten John Cena, okay? That doesn't make beating John Cena wrong. That's just a decision. There are many people in WWE who did not agree with that decision, but the guy in charge did it. The one thing I can say is that even though they may say something different publicly, they were blindsided by that reaction. This is Dave again. It's a debatable point. If Gunther is elevated, and by today's reaction, it looked like he was, but again, that's a one-day reaction. If he's this hot and he's getting this reaction in 4 months or 6 months, and he's in the position where he is, a super heel headliner, if they really go with him, like if he's in the middle of the card and he's getting this reaction like Dominic, it's just like, yeah, nothing against it. It's fine. It's good, but it's, it's not necessarily evidence of anything, as far as like if it's right or wrong. But if he does that, it's strong evidence if he gets over really, really strong that in the long run, that it's the right decision. But I think the thing that really bothers me is the idea from, that people are going, if you don't know wrestling. You think that if he should, if you think that he should have done anything but lose. And it's like, no, it's a debatable point. It's not about like, everyone, here's the thing. Guys have done, big superstars have done retirement shows. And I've talked with you about this. And then they did a long digression about when people win their last match and leave the territory and stuff like this. But basically Dave's point is that the ending is acceptable if Gunther is elevated and he becomes a heel headlining star and not Dominic in the mid-card. And I think you can look at us today on June 8th, 2026, and like we said at the top of the show, Trish, is Gunther a big elevated heel headlining star for WWE?
Is this a rhetorical question? No. Look, okay, so you can say, I think there is an argument to say then that you can wait and see. But I don't think you can look at anything they've done in the last 18 months prior to the Cena retirement and think they were going to suddenly push Gunther to the moon.
Thank you.
They weren't going to. This is... And the thing that frustrates me is that all the signs were there prior to Cena turning up for his retirement year, right? They started to lose momentum in the last quarter of 2024. You can actually see that in all their numbers. You can see it in their TV ratings. You can see it in their live attendances. Pick one, you'll see it. And then, they got this kind of little lift at the start of 2025 out of the Netflix deal, and then obviously Cena coming in. And that covered so much. But all these things were just there, just underneath, right? And you look at it going into 2025, Gunther was the second belt champion, lost it to Jey Uso. I'm sure that's great for someone who does that I'm the wrestler thing. Picks it back up, loses it to CM Punk at SummerSlam, still the second belt holder, still the guy playing the second fiddle, the champion you're going to beat. And then you have this thing, you have the opportunity, and I do think there is an opportunity to do something massive with him. But obviously, they didn't have any plans. They had no idea what to do. Oh, we're going to have him beat AJ Styles in a mid-card in Saudi Arabia and retire him. So it's going to be like the Undertaker gimmick now, like he's that kind of special attraction. He's going to be the guy retiring people. And then what you do is then you don't really know what to do with him. So you know what I'm going to do? We're going to have him eliminated in the Royal Rumble later that night. Yeah, that's a super push, You're like, oh no, he's just a guy that gets beat at the end of the Rumble, so he's in the same spot as he was before. Oh, and then we don't really know what to do with him for WrestleMania because we haven't planned anybody for him. So what we're going to do is we're going to rush him in to the Seth Rollins feud, when it originally would have been Seth and Bron Breakker, which originally would have been Seth and Roman Reigns, but this is their problem. So they had no plan. And they still don't have any plan. And it's, what we're going to do? We're going to change our plans coming out of WrestleMania because Orton's injured or everything with Pat McAfee went up the fucking wall. And we're not going to do Gunther and Roman Reigns this summer. Or we're not going to do Gunther and Brock Lesnar at that point. So, what we'll do? We'll rush him into this thing with Cody Rhodes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have him beaten on a B pay-per-view with a shitty foot under the rope angle that makes the babyface look like a fucking idiot. And in an opener on ESPN, because Cody Rhodes doesn't main event pay-per-views that Roman Reigns does anymore. Well, and that's it. That's where we're at. And they maybe do the rematch. Maybe they do a three-way at Night of Champions. Maybe they try and find a way to get him into doing, Gunther, Brock Lesnar, because they keep changing what they're doing in King of the Ring every fucking week at the moment. It's chaos. And it's like, but that means less, because you do that, then what happens, right? Obafemi's already had the potential retirement thing. He needs to get that third win over Lesnar. The decision to do that with Femi, and we'll talk about it in a bit, is a fucking joke to start with, but you need to do that. So it's like, what part is there for Gunther? What part is there for Gunther that made this decision worthwhile? That pissed off so many people who spent an absolute fortune travelling to your show as a destination event. These are the people that are probably the most key to you, because these are the ones with the big spend, that you want to fly into Minnesota in August, that you want to fly into New Orleans on October the 10th because you've moved that 3 fucking times. Like, there is no plan. He's going to be in the same spot. You've left him in that spot for too long. It's Zack Sabre Jr. syndrome in New Japan,
There's no plan, and I think it was pretty clear back in fucking December that there wasn't going to be a plan. And I think this is why I find the framing of this so frustrating, is the idea that like, oh, okay, no, if they have a plan, it'll be worth it. And so it's like, I don't have to criticize this in the moment because I can kick the can down the road and say, well, it does, in 6 months he might be in a good place. When the reality is we all fucking looked at this and knew they weren't going to fucking do anything with Gunther. I mean, Gunther's cage match since he beat Cena is unbelievable, right? And some of this includes house shows, and I'm going to read the house show stuff because I think it's fucking funny, and I want to read it, and I want to get a laugh out of you, so I'm going to say it. So Gunther defeats John Cena on Saturday night's main event on December 13, 2025. Then we have Gunther defeats Javon Evans, Gunther defeats Javon Evans, Gunther defeats Javon Evans, Gunther defeats R-Truth, Gunther defeats Javon Evans, Gunther defeats Sami Zayn, 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 Gunther defeats AJ Styles, Gunther defeats El Grande Americano, Gunther defeats Sami Zayn, Gunther defeats Jey Uso, Roman Reigns throws Gunther out of the Royal Rumble, Gunther defeats AJ Styles, Javon Evans defeats Dominic Mysterio and Gunther, Gunther defeats Dragon Lee, Gunther defeats Seth Rollins by ref decision at WrestleMania 42, and then we have, Gunther defeats Royce Keys, Cody Rhodes defeats Gunther, Cody Rhodes defeats Gunther, Cody Rhodes defeats Gunther, Cody Rhodes defeats Gunther, Cody Rhodes defeats Gunther. Like, the guy's not doing shit. And that match at Clash of Italy got 11 fucking minutes. Like, what are we doing here? 11 fucking minutes. Like, and I get a lot of the bitching about that came from Cody, leaking to whoever that he was pissed off that he only got 11 minutes. And the first fucking 12 minutes of the show were pointless. It was video package, people walking in with their fucking luggage.
They love those.
They fucking love the walk in with the fucking luggage.
All over
bullshit.
AAA now as well. Yeah.
And the endless fucking sports, they kept calling Cody QB1. QB1, which is so fucking stupid. And then they kept making all of these sports references, and I was like, what are they doing? And I was like, oh, they're on ESPN. So they're trying to, instead of the fucking casual fan, we have the mythical sports fan who's going to actually be tuning into this because they think it's good, right?
Who's then going to watch a rope, a foot under the bottom rope angle without no replay, and then Dave's right on that, and then be like, oh, that makes sense, where we've just watched, we're watching VAR on the World Cup every fucking week coming up,
It was so stupid, and they rushed out of there to the end, right? They finished the match. Gunther gets the leg down. They pull the leg. It was a fucking weirdo finish. The referee was staring right at it. The whole thing just looked fucking dumb. And then Gunther, basically ran off. I'll give this for them. The crowd was pretty hot for it, but it was also one of those European crowds where you can't tell if they're enjoying what they're seeing or they're just happy to be there.
Well, it's the first PLE they've had in Italy, ever.
Yes, which they kept harping on during the announcing.
Yeah. And to be fair, the crowd, they wanted to be there and enjoy it. It's very much like the Lyon crowd last year.
Yeah, yes.
Before last. When they did and they had a chant for 2 count that they were just singing over and over and over. So European crowds, especially because if you pay that much, you're just gonna go out and enjoy it. It's the same with when you watch the Brock Lesnar Obafemi match on that show, right? Yep. It's you should hope that people are slightly pissed that Lesnar wins. But to me, I was thinking about this afterwards, and I was discussing this at the time, and I said, if you're in that crowd and you've never seen a Brock Lesnar in Italy, because you won't have, because he doesn't go to European tours, and you've not seen a Roman Reigns world title match, you're going to think you had value for money, even though you were pretty much giving very much a B pay-per-view, because you're not used to seeing these people.
Right.
So it's really hard to judge some of those decisions, because you can fall into the trap, and you heard Triple H kind of talk about it this week, is, but I heard 11,000 people singing Cody Rhodes' name, and it's that's one building. How are you doing in all these buildings? Are you selling out these buildings? Are you doing better than you were before? Are these people more over than they were before? How's your TV, the noise of your TV tapings, or how many people you've got walking out in silence? If you base everything around fucking one European tour, then you might as well be TNA 2008, That doesn't mean these people are over everywhere, and it doesn't mean it's you have to separate that. You have to have that ability to know when someone's truly over or just over in one building. When you're in a building like that and that sort of setup, they're always going to be way more over. It's why people used to come to Europe all the time in the 2010s and stuff, WWE and then TNA earlier than that, because you knew that you would get those sort of responses. And that's not a bad thing. Your talent will feed off that, especially if they're not getting anything in the US. Right. But you cannot rely on that as an indicator of how how your product is doing in full. You just can't, because it's not reflective of everything. It can sometimes be a cover up on those sort of things, and those sort of atmospheres are great because, as we talked about last time at Double or Nothing, you can it elevates things that you haven't actually done the work with.
Yes, yes,
and that was very much a case with this PLE, for WWE. There's a lot of things that were quite lazy in build, or, especially you look at, and we'll talk the wrestler's card, the IC match with Sol Ruka and Becky and that sort of thing. But you'll get away with some of these things that you just wouldn't get away with elsewhere because of the European crowd. But I wouldn't say, was this a match where people were baying for Cody to defeat, the evil heel, this super heel that's been pushed so strongly that there's actual huge value in defeating him? Or was this just another match, title defense on a PLE that no one really cared about? It was in the opener on ESPN at 6 p.m. in the evening. Take your pick,
I just, it goes back to a couple of those conversations, which we're going to have a larger conversation about, development and all that other stuff. But again, it goes back to who has Triple H elevated since he took over? I think there's an argument to be made, and we've made the argument that Cody Rhodes was a Vince McMahon creation in WWE. And it's what has Triple H gotten in WWE that he didn't have? Right? Are any of these wrestlers more over than they were before? How many of them that he called up and got let go? We just had a giant bloodletting of WWE talent. Mm-hmm. I'm racking my brains. I really am.
I'm just does Rhea count? Was Rhea up before then? I don't know. Have they done enough to maximize her, or is she bigger a couple years ago than she is now? And that's the thing. There might be people that they brought up and into a spot, but a lot of them have been called off.
Yes.
And that's part of the reason why, they're struggling a little bit in terms of compared to where they were. And that's not to say they're, in some financial trouble or anything like that. No, they're massively financially successful because of the media deals that they signed, last year. It's the most successful WWE's ever been momentarily. But in terms of popularity, you can see with all the metrics that they are cooling in that aspect.
Right.
And part of that is that all of the significant people are cooled in some way or another. We've spoken many a time about Cody Rhodes, and like everything they did last year damaged him. And everything they've done this year hasn't helped.
No.
And it's all right, Triple H going out and, saying, listen to all these people and like, we haven't hurt Cody, or you've got Cody wandering around with his QB1 catchphrase, which is hilarious when you can't get past Roman Reigns to save your fucking life. And then at the same time, when you've got Roman, like, kind of, they're working that into an angle now, him kind of dissing the QB1. But again, once you start putting that on screen, it just reflects back. People just start to take that bit. But it's like, he's not as high as he was 2 years ago. There's absolutely no way you can look at any of those numbers, whether it's SmackDown live shows or anything like that, and think that he's as hot as he was 2 years ago. And, when it comes to actually trusting him, the reason why you can say that the audience doesn't trust him is because they know that the people behind, their creative doesn't trust him. TKO doesn't trust him. If they trusted him, they wouldn't be fucking with his creative every WrestleMania. They don't do for Roman Reigns, they do it for him. So it's like, that's it. And then you look underneath that, and you start to find yourself in kind of trouble in terms of who's like that. Did they spur the babyface turn that they had for Roman Reigns? Yes, and now we're doing this title run, but we're now into just a rehash of the bloodline. So they're into, what is it now, the sit fucking inning or whatever? I don't fucking know. But it's like, rehashing things when you are hot is always a bad sign. That says you're running out of new ideas, you're running ways to move forward. And then you're starting to kind of nuke people that maybe got hot in those programs before. You've got Jacob Fatu, who came in really hot a few years ago, and you thought, oh, okay, he could come in, become something, and he's not someone that come through developmental, he's someone that's come off the independents, worked for a long time, and it's like, and now he's just a sidekick to Roman Reigns in that little faction after losing 2 title matches. You don't gain anything there. And it's just, you look down that roster and it's hard to spot people that were there, last couple of years who are better off now than they were. You're right. And that always becomes a problem because some of the things they were doing well, and this is the thing, right? It's very easy to look back at when they were successful and people just say, oh, everybody ate it up, or, their fans just take everything. They don't care what they're given. It's not that good. And that. But by doing that, you're actually not looking at the things that they were successful with. You're not looking at the fact that they did have some storylines that people were actually invested in, right. Severely invested in, and that powered them for such a long way. And then you're also looking at, they made really good kind of payoffs for their baby faces. Yes. So LA Knight, right? He's not going to win the world title, but we're going to make sure we give him a mid-card title, and we're going to highlight him in that way because he's over. Sami Zayn, he's not going to win the world title, but you know what? We're going to pay off him in a different way with the tag titles and the first one, and we're going to promote that it's going to be like the first tag team match to headline a WrestleMania. And even though for him, it's not a payoff for however you got as a babyface, as a singles guy, the crowd will believe it because you promote it in some way, and it feels like a natural kind of finish to that part of that story in effect, that they'll see it as, we had that payoff. We our investment wasn't wasted. And it's that sort of thing. You could look up and down that card and you could see things, and you could see them really kind of promoting, this is WWE now, and this is more valuable than WWE in the past. This is not, they right. got to a point right. where they were like, this right. is not Brock Lesnar's company now, this is not John Cena's company now. The Rock came in and we spurred him to one side because we don't need him because we've got this right now. We right. have these people. These are our stars. And then what they've done over the last 18 months is just reverse that. We don't pay anything off anymore at all, practically. And if you are going to do anyone beating someone or, looking for potential elevation, what you're going to do is you're going to take them right back with parity booking, which right. is a curse that goes across so many companies right now, because you've got that fight between stability at the top and people wanting to break in, and the way to kind of, and then wanting to protect your kind of drawing assets, that everything has to be fucking parity booked and it gets nobody over whatsoever. So we can't move anyone else out to then pay off anything else. We're not doing that. And then it's like, you don't have that continuity of, it's the same people in the same spots all the fucking time. And that's what they're now suffering with. So they don't have anybody in the mid-card that like feels underused or undervalued to their audience, because you've told them what they are. You've told them what their spot is. And then if you've got them invested in a story and that, it'll just get wasted. And you're back to square one. You know, and I think this is some of the reason when you look at like the reaction to that AAA match, the Mask versus Mask.
Oh yes, the Grande Americano versus Grande Americano.
Yeah, and look, it was a very good match. I thought it was a really good match, and I thought the build to it was excellent.
Yeah,
like I watched all the episodes of AAA TV on the run up, WWE AAA TV, as more accurate as it should be. But like some of the reactions to it, and I was thinking about this after, and I thought some of the reactions to this isn't because like they think it's the greatest thing ever, or they actually justifiably like invested. It's because they've had so little to invest in this company. They've had so little that's been paid off, or so little to celebrate. You know, you got your John Cena title run, but last year, like if you wanted your big nostalgia run, but you got it as a heel with no direction whatsoever. And then by the time he handed it back, he pretty much buried Cody in the handbag. And then you had the payoff of his kind of retirement tour, and then you screw up this ending, and that's what now it looks like. You know, you can't look at that ending now and not think it was screwed up. And now what you're doing, you still need John Cena on TV because, you know, especially with this ESPN partnership, I think Lesnar and Cena, you can see like the roles that they've been put in. That feels like it's something where, do ESPN view the people that you have now as worth as much? You know, is that why you have to have John Cena on a promotional kind of contract? Like, and he becomes like, oh, we're going to advertise him for Backlash over the top of the card. Like, you've stopped telling everybody that the people that you have now are worth more than the people that have come from the past.
Right.
If people want to watch things from the past, they can sit on YouTube. They can go on fucking TikTok. There's millions of clips. Nostalgia sells, yeah. But as soon as your product is about nostalgia more than it's about your current, you're always going to lose ground.
I think it's that. I agree with this 110%. And I think it's one of those things where, like, and I'm sure, you know, we've been guilty of this at times, but I think this weird wrestling fan thing of like, well, it's okay if it's bad, if there's like something down the line that's going to draw business or it's going to do some better business. Like sometimes you just say it's fucking bad. Like Cena's retirement was bad. It was bad that he lost. It wasn't good. You know, like people left, like you said, a bunch of people who paid a shit ton of money went home fucking disappointed because Cena didn't win and they booed it. And it was indicative. I think there's a really good point to be made that the shittiness of the finish was like, you know, the microcosm of the shittiness of his last run in one, you know what I mean? In one quick image. And I think instead of doing that, it's like, well, let's talk about how maybe in 6 months, if Gunther's a huge heel star, this was actually a good thing. And I just find that to be frustrating because I think it takes some of the, you know, it's easy. It's like, and I get it. Like we've talked about this. Nobody's calling you or me. We're not even getting angry DMs from MJF. Like, we're not like, if we say something sucks, like, you know, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to say that when you don't have people calling you and bitching you out for that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, this sucked. We knew, but Gunther wasn't going to be elevated, and he's not. He's doing shitty 11-minute matches with, I mean, I should say shitty. It actually was. For a WWE match, I didn't hate it. I still thought it was like a mid-card Dynamite match in terms of the actual quality of the wrestling, but it was fine. You know, I wasn't as angered by it as I was by Gunther's match with CM Punk.
See, the thing about what I think about this is, right, it's that you had the Cena ending with Gunther, like 2 months after you had Lesnar destroy Cena.
Yeah. So
really, you'd already given Lesnar that destruction thing. Right, you'd already given him that kind of last destruction of Cena after he had the, you know, the much celebrated match at SummerSlam with Cody where he handed it back. So that match where you was like, this is like John Cena's over now, like that's it, it's done. That was the one, you know, on WrestlePalooza. That wasn't the one in Cena's last match. That'll be the one that like that had the same ending. Like you repeated the same ending. What you did was you actually made Lesnar the big killer heel,
right?
Not Gunther. And then, you know, which is worse because it's going back to the past as well. And I can't see, you look for any numbers, you can't see any viable reason why to still pursue that with Brock Lesnar. But then you go to WrestleMania and you do the Obafemi thing, right? And you have him vanquish him. And if you look at what people were talking about, what they wanted with Gunther, what they did there would be what you want here, right?
Right.
So you built him up, like, and then you had that big moment and it felt big at the time and you thought, right, they've done the right thing. And then obviously they went back to fucking square one because we have to parity book. And then it's like, okay, so we took Obafemi, who has that fantastic look to him, you know, is over as hell. Like, yeah, okay, some of it's the entrance, but, you know, for a young person coming in or someone, you know, new, rather fresh to the roster, you need something else, you know, to help you because you're going against people who have familiar with and have connections with. So fine, you do that. You have him beat Brock Lesnar. Yes, it has to be Brock Lesnar's spam match because that's how we do it. But it's like, okay, you have something, then what do you have? And again, it's the same thing. So it's one of them, like, even if you built Gunther into this big super thing, would you have actually capitalized on it? And you watch what they did with Lesnar and Femi, and you watch what they're doing now, and they do that thing where, you know, they give him the win back, and is this 7-5? And oh, what was the other bit? Oh, you know, it was the first time he was going to get counted out in his career. Like, fuck off with that shit. Like, if you really, really want to get someone over, then you have to, like, back it up. There's too much of this, and this is not just WWE as well.
No, it's not a WWE problem. Yes.
But there's too much of this. Oh, he's in a program or she's in a program with this person, therefore they're getting over. And it's like, it's bollocks. Nobody gets over in that way, right? No one does. You need to be winning these secondary feuds. There needs to be, you know, it's not just, oh, I have a match with this person for this belt. No. You need to have these programs with top people and you need to be winning them and then you need to be elevated into that spot. This is like the old Chris Jericho argument. You know, everyone used to say, oh, yeah, Jericho never puts anybody over because the people that won against him then did fuck all and he was still on TV. It's not Jericho's fault.
Nope.
You know, because the way that they're looking at it as a booking thing is to think, yeah, but I have this stability. I know what I'm getting. I know what rating I'm getting with Jericho. So I'll have him work with this sort of people, but then I need to also protect him in these sort of things because I still need him to draw because I don't trust or won't put the effort in to making somebody else in that same spot. But so then all you have is these kind of results become worthless. You're not putting anybody over being in this program where they work with somebody for 2 months and then they lose and then they disappear again and go back to the same fucking spot. You're not putting them over like when they win and then they do the same fucking thing and then that person gets elevated upwards, right? Trick Williams and Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn's now in the world title program and around it with Cody Rhodes, right?
Right.
Trick Williams is in Trick Williams' spot. He's a guy with a belt. It's like, it's over and over and over and over again. And it's the same when you look at the other people that were on this card back in, you know, December 13th, right? So we talked about Femi. You had Sol Ruka, who debuted after WrestleMania, finally, who wrestled Bayley on that show, who now has the IC title and is now going to have to work out of a fucking hole because you had her come in and lose on the main roster and lose on the main roster and lose on the main roster. And then all of a sudden she pulls out a win. And I couldn't believe it. The fans, I think the next night were chanting, you deserve it. And I'm like, but feeling fucking what? Like, you have someone who has a really unique moveset and is struggling a little bit with the adaptation. And some of that comes from the way that they practice matches in the performance center. And then, you know, obviously you don't have the same thing on the road. But you have to basically make that person like the same level as a Becky Lynch, not a novice, that sort of thing. Because you have to have people have a reason to gravitate to them. Otherwise they don't, right? If you don't give people a reason, they don't. Look at like Evil Takeshita G1 final last year. Like, you didn't give New Japan fans that reason to gravitate to Takeshita. So the few people that actually went to the show, much down on what it was the year before, when we're just going to cheer for the guy that we know. It's so easy to do. You have to work harder, and it's like there's a huge lack of kind of investment in that. And some of that comes from not having long-term plans, right? Or not wanting to disrupt other people's plans. And some, you know, and changing up constantly, which is happening fucking constantly with WWE right now. But also it comes from not willing to put them out into place. So even now, right, if they, you know, they've changed from booking for King of Ring just over the last week. If they try and do something with like Javon Evans and Obafemi and that sort of stuff, and, you know, they find a way to do Obafemi and Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, what kind of follow-up is he going to get? You know, you can do a big moment, but what does it actually matter unless you have to do this stuff like consistently and keep backing it up and backing it up and backing it up. And it's like, you can see all the different things that are happening underneath the surface with every single person here. And it's like, it's the same cycle. They're literally back in 2002. I talk about it all the time because you can see so much of what's happening here. Like, look at Brock Lesnar in 2002. Like, they did everything right with him from the start when he came in terms up to winning the world title and, you know, when he won the WWE title off The Rock at SummerSlam. And then by Survivor Series, they're throwing it all away to have him do something with Brock Lesnar, who he never wins the belt back from. And, you know, 6 months later, they're in a cold venue in Seattle for WrestleMania 19. The top of the card. He might be in the main event, but he's like the third place match in the card behind Rock and Stone Cold trying to do something that's now aged out, and Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon, and a year later he's out of the company. You have like such short windows to get this stuff right, and there are people that maybe can recover from sort of things, but they're fucking unicorns. They're not the status quo. And when I look at like what happened in New Japan over the last few years, when you've basically kind of hedged on to people that would deliver you like steady results rather than producing and your kind of people underneath, and you've got a ton of people that wouldn't work and put over, well, not maybe work, but wouldn't put over those people coming up, like, you know where they got to, and now look what they have to do. They now have to start from fucking scratch, and that's hard, and you know that you're going to suffer and pain for it, and that these guys here have to have, you know, people that will carry these massive cars for them, that will be able to generate site fees for PLEs for 2 nights in Minnesota. That's like a crazy thing to have to do. And then have to, you know, to eventually what they want is to be able to generate site fees for Raws and SmackDown.
Yep.
Like, you're not doing that on Raws and SmackDown that are 4 weeks or 5 weeks out and doing 3,600 or whatever the fuck some of these numbers are right now.
Those advances are scary.
Yeah.
Those advances are not good.
And yes, that's part of wrestling in terms of things, in terms of the cyclic nature. But this company can't operate in that cyclic nature. That's why you're seeing signs of them cracking. That's why they say more stupid shit like everywhere.
We don't care about fan response. We don't think the chattering on the internet is valuable. Nothing is happening. Yada, yada, yada. That's
bollocks. It's complete bollocks, because they are reacting to everything. They are changing everything up constantly. And, you know, and yeah, look, and I said, you have to work harder, because there is less acceptance for development sometimes. You know, there's always somebody else that fans might think is, you know, more worthy of a spot or that sort of thing than that young person coming through, or that fresh person coming through. But the only way that you can do it is if you really get behind them, because as soon as you half kind of measure it, like, they're just, it's done and it's gone, and you've lost. And maybe you'll get someone with it, and maybe you might get someone that's an upper mid card or on the edge of being a draw. But the only way you actually get someone who's actually going to draw you money on a significant basis and break through is if you actually commit to them. And they don't seem to be able to commit to anybody for too long, and especially under the pressure now, where you've got the added pressure of people's contracts being at risk if you're in that upper mid card section and you're not able to illustrate your value to them at each time. So people are more defensive up above, so they're going to be more defensive of anyone coming in. Everyone in the mid card's going to be more defensive of their spot, because you're essentially replacing them with the people that are coming from NXT or coming from elsewhere. So it's a vicious circle. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, these are creative decisions, you know, and it's something we could see 6 months ago. And that's been the frustration, is you could see this 12 months ago. You could see this 18 months ago. You could see the direction of travel. And, you know, you can fling someone in there now and think, oh, we're going to do this for SummerSlam, and we're going to tell you that this was the plan all along, and whatever other bollocks that Nick Khan wants to say. But it's like, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, and
it's still the same people on top. It's still the same people in the same spots. Like, there needs to be a point where these people that are going into these matches aren't the second person in the match. It's the same in, you know, we talk about a pay-per-view in AEW. Like, look at who's the first person on that pay-per-view in that top card, or who's the second person. And when was the last time we had a new first person? Because, like, other than that Swerve run in 2024, I can't tell you, actually. That's the only one since, like, 2022 where you've not seen that new second person. 2022-23 where you've seen that that first person. Yeah, that person that's the first name on the that's going to carry that pay-per-view at the top, where they trust them with it. And yes, it's difficult because you're in that sort of environment, this media environment, and especially when you're chasing these sort of media deals. But there has to be. And when you look at something, when they do like the Grande Americano thing, and they do it in Mexico, and yes, there's many reasons why it works in Mexico, as well as, you know, how much they want to see kind of WWE talent and everything else, but it gets nothing in the US. So why can't you convert? Why is it that that's being treated like NXT from 10 years ago, and you're unable to convert these kind of people coming in, or these stories that are really popular elsewhere, and convert them to your TV show to being like, you know, people that can actually be seen on the same level as your Seth Rollins or your Becky Lynch or your Rhea Ripley's or your Jade Cargill, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's a real struggle. And I think this is the thing, when you look at development now, and you look at the pathways for development worldwide, and you think, what options is there? What options are there to you to be able to demonstrate yourself to a point where you are going to be able to step above these people that have been around for long, you know, periods of time on TV, and are going to be around even longer because careers are so much longer now than they were 20 years ago.
Well, I just don't, like you said, it's just going to get worse and worse. You know, you're going to see people just feuding with the same people over and over and over again. And, you know, we haven't seen a lot of people from NXT. I mean, yeah, they're cheaper, but they're just going to come in and fill those mid-card spots. They're not going to come in and take those. We haven't gotten any evidence so far that they're going to come in and take those top spots. And like you said, this is not just a WWE problem. This is an issue across the board in a lot of promotions where people are just afraid to take risks, and, you know, people are afraid to give up TV time. People are afraid to take time away. And then people are afraid to take, you know, promoters are afraid to take risks and do something different. And I don't know. It's just, it's kind of, it was fascinating to go back and listen to them talk about this show, and listen to Dave talk about it, and sort of say, well, you know, we could be in a different spot in 6 months and be like, well, we're here now. He's not doing nothing.
Here's a question. What do you think happens? So I've said that I think that they'll try and, you know, pretend elevation, is it? They'll try and position some of these people, you know, that they've got like Femi and Evans and that sort of thing for a couple months where they're like, we're really pushing these young guys and Solruka and that, and then it'll be kind of fall back to where they were because it won't work completely because you haven't done it properly. And just like when Heyman took the booking and Vince took it back and that sort of thing, and then they'll be scrambling for names to put together in WrestleMania. But what do you think?
I honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, you go either way. I do think it's certainly possible that somebody from the mid card or somebody from NXT could jump up and take a spot somewhere. You know, you saw it with people like, you know, LA Knight was around forever and he just suddenly weirdly got over in a way. You had, you know, they've done it before. Danhausen came in and, you know, they're overusing him, but he has made a splash. You're rolling your eyes. I love you. Wish you could see your face.
I'm not rolling my eyes, but the thing is, these are comedy people, right? This is like Joe Hendry was on that show that you watch. So they're coming in and they're into that R-Truth spot, or they're coming in and playing the mid carder, but they don't need fucking people to come in and play the mid carder. They need to replenish the top of their card that's aging like hell. They've got CM Punk off TV at the moment doing whatever, and like, are they using that time and that space to elevate somebody else?
No, of course not.
Particularly. No.
I think they're either going to ones are going to make a jump from AEW in a way that is, because that always happens. Everybody's like, what? Like, that will be shocking and horrifying.
Well, you've got FTR now out there on record saying they've been told their worth. No, I know. But FTR are just using it for leverage, right?
Of course they are.
Like, but the fact that they put that out there.
My mom knows that.
And then, I know.
I'm sorry.
But then
I'm so mean to you. I'm so sorry.
But it's not the fucking point.
No, I know.
Yeah, the only thing different this time is we don't have to listen to the fucking podcast.
Oh, thank God for that shit. Jesus Christ.
Oh my God. The people that had to aggregate that because he kept saying stupid shit. And I'm like, that got shut down for good reason. Jesus. But, but yeah, this was, do you remember when they said this was going to be the last deal?
They all say that. Every fucking wrestler's like, oh, it's going to be my last deal. Then they're fucking, you know, Bubba Ray Dudleying their way to the ring, like, slowly
Lesnar said that was going to be his last match, and now look where we are.
Yeah, slowly preparing to put themselves through a table. Like, and I say this about my faves, too. I'm not, you know, they all do it. I just think that, I don't know.
Oh, let me make the FTR point because I've gone quite off fucking track, right? No, but the whole point, like, they're using it for leverage, but them saying, like, you know, we've been made aware of what our value would be. And it's like, why on earth would you not think that other people have in AEW? Like, what planet are you fucking on? What do you think I've been talking around for 4 months? Do you think I don't have fucking quotes? Like, come on. Yeah. Like, grow up. Yeah. But that's the point, isn't it? It's like there will be, and the reason they're looking for people like there isn't just to make like an impact, but it's like also we know that the people that we've got at the top aren't going to put these people over, so we're looking for someone else to work with them and do, you know, and help to elevate them, and that's like a really shitty solution because instead of the people putting them over that should be, you know, your Seth Rollins, your Roman, well, he probably would, your Roman Reigns, you know, your CM Punk, your Cody Rhodes and stuff, we're looking for other people to come in and do that basically for us, but also to work that way to top to have new blood. And if you're gonna, get hold of those people if you think you really have a shot at them. You have to prove that what they're going to get there, it's going to be better than what they're leaving, no matter how many frustrations they might have with their position or not being able to be a complete top dog in AEW right now, whether that's man or woman. So in order to do that, like, you've got to prove something else. You can't continue to do this, and throwing kind of simple things at them, or starting to play with schedules and that sort of thing, and like they're doing with Forbidden Door, or what they're doing in Mexico around September. Like, you get a little bit of promotion out of that, but you're not really making any difference. So yeah, they actually need to invest in the summer to be able, for multiple reasons. You really think that you can do damage to AEW next year and the potential then getting a TV deal. Well, you need to sort your creative out now, not in 6 months, 12 months. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I did think it was funny that they were the first name to break. Like, first name that's been on, all right.
I mean, if you don't have FTR and the Young Bucks and Christian and Copeland, you don't have a tag division, apparently. So, it's a side note for me being a little bit better.
Well, it's one of them, isn't it? It's like, once you entered into that FTR, Copeland Christian thing last year, you knew that the tag division was kind of operating outside of the belts for the foreseeable future, and that has what's come to pass. And now the tag champions are off TV a week after doing them, and oh well. Right, anyway.
Moving on.
Did you see, just before we talk about kind of some other things that are going on around, did you see the flag story around the headquarters? So, how's this for a fucking metaphor?
God, it's not even a metaphor. It's like God smacking you in the head with a hammer and being like, yeah.
So for anyone that didn't see, just it's worth looking up just because it's such a funny thing. So what the flag from the WWE HQ in Stamford actually blew off the building during a storm, landed on some power company lines, and big boom, and managed to wipe out electric at first for 5,000 people in the local area, and then when they were trying to fix it, it actually shifted the flag and it wiped out another 40,000 people the next day.
If you don't know where WWE headquarters is, it's like right off of, so the city of Stamford, Connecticut is like literally bisected by Route 95, which is like the major highway that connects the East Coast. So it's right next to the train lines too for Metro North and Amtrak as they go from, if you've ever taken a train up the coast from New York to Boston, that's kind of how you go. So there's a lot of fucking shit there, but yeah, it's insane that they fucking took power out for 40,000 people in Connecticut because of a fucking American. I mean, that, just like you said, it just says everything you need to say about the state of this country and the fucking WWE as we get ready for this fucking TKO fight night UFC bullshit on the fucking front lawn of the White House that looks like a goddamn Six Flags. I mean, Jesus Christ. Anyway, I'm just depressed now.
I should laugh at that. It's not funny, but
no, laugh at my country, please. We deserve to be mocked. We deserve to be mocked. No one should not be laughing or shitting on us. We deserve to be laughed at and shit at.
I don't think as a Brit I can say that we're any better. So let's not do that. But what obviously the big news,
Emily Maitlis at least.
Yeah, and Joan Sopel. We love it. Yes. I love how people are like, oh, who do you look up to in like with podcasts? And it's like, yeah, it's them. It's not wrestling.
No.
No. Sorry. But no, so one of the obviously that news story that came out with TKO this week is that Donald Trump has bought shares in them.
Yep.
Which has surprised nobody and then when you look at kind of legal developments and that sort of thing, you then have that thing where that unfortunately, look at something like the Ring Boys case, and there's huge argument about whether that's state jurisdiction. If that was taken to the Supreme Court, I think we all kind of know where it'd end up, and that's kind of that real worry about the lack of gap between the judiciary and the state. That then when you have the literal leader of the state investing in a private property and who has these sort of things going on, it's just it's maddening because that the chance of some of these people getting justice is much less than what it potentially could be. But there was another lawsuit update. So we actually thought we'd get to cover, first ever lawsuit today, didn't we?
I know. But it's settled.
Well, yeah, they said they've agreed it in principle, yeah.
Yeah, that's not surprising. So this is the civil lawsuit that the shareholders of TKO filed, or WWE, excuse me, the WWE shareholders filed against Vince McMahon, saying that the WWE TKO merger was basically fixed by Vince McMahon so that he could get back in power again. And this is where a lot of those Langus leaks and the stuff that you've seen about Triple H and Vince McMahon's struggling inability to communicate with each other. I think once you realize, it's one of those funny things is when you start to sit down and go, hey, should I be communicating this in writing in my workplace? And you're like, wow, it's really hard not to communicate things in writing. But yes, they wanted to take certain communications to Signal, which is an app where you can text people and then the messages self-destruct. Now it's going to get just like Get Smart. And Nick Khan had sent a message to Vince McMahon telling him to go to Langus. And Vince McMahon said, I don't know what that means. And Nick Khan had to tell him to read it backwards. So I think the thing that I keep coming back to just about the downfall of Western civilization at this point, or at least my country's, is how stupid these people are. I thought that we would at least have intelligent people, like evil masterminds. And it turns out that they're just fucking morons. But anyway,
see, I don't know if, I think he was just plainly lying when he said he had no idea about certain things on his phone, because, that deleting of messages, that's a huge thing in the UK at the moment. The Prime Minister deletes his WhatsApps after every 30 minutes, and that meant that, there was nothing as part of the Peter Mandelson investigation. So it's not an unusual thing for people in those top positions to do. No. But when it's around a merger and that sort of thing, obviously, there are financial implications, and therefore, I think with this case in particular, that they named multiple people as defendants. So it wasn't just Vince McMahon, it was Nick Khan, Paul Levesque, George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, which were the two members of the board that Vince McMahon brought back when he returned after his, not removal, after he stepped away when the first allegations came out in the Wall Street Journal. So it was a number of people that they did that to. But also when it comes to these the thing that came out obviously with that around Signal and the communications was that the judge pretty much reprimanded them. And therefore, the emphasis of the trial may have been that you need to prove outside of it rather than the other way round.
Right.
And that's obviously, will play a part in what have potentially led to a settlement. And it's not unusual to see a settlement before trial because, there's a lot of things that came out in Discovery. If you go across to Post Wrestling, catch up on, John Pollock wrote the Signal to Noise piece today that sums up kind of everything that's happened to him in terms of what's come out and how it kind of portrays and, really kind of brings the curtain back on how things work in that company or how these individuals operate in a way that they probably hate more than some of the other things in recent years, because that's the crazy way that this all works.
When you're looking at a lawsuit like this, they settle very late almost always because essentially the judges made all the rulings, the relevant rulings, and there's a sense of who's got the upper hand and who doesn't, and who's more likely to win and who isn't, or who's more likely to have things come out in Discovery maybe that they don't want to. Plus all the lawyers are together in the same city. And so it's very, very common for big cases like this to settle at kind of the 11th hour like this one did. And I'm sure at some point we'll get the details of what the settlement was, unless it's kept private, which in some cases it is. You might never know, but who knows?
Yeah, and they were seeking damages of up to $1 billion, and they're not going to get that. A settlement's always way below that sort of thing.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
But what I also found interesting this evening, though, and not in a good way, was the Front Office Sports article that went out this evening that was entitled "Vince McMahon Cuts Last Minute Deal in Suit Seeking Misconduct Documents. WWE shareholders assault documents from McMahon surrounding allegations of sexual misconduct and payment to women." So the whole case is now, by Front Office Sports, who are the WWE media partner, which wasn't listed in their article. But it's like there are quotes in there around kind of unidentified sources who obviously very close to that situation, but it's all being framed as this is Vince McMahon, this is not about current WWE, this is not about anyone that's employed in that, even though Nick Khan is heavily, being reprimanded in the build-up to the potential trial of this case. So that's another one where you've got to watch these kind of co-opted media, and that one obviously co-opted in financial agreement, and the way that these things are being presented and turned, because that was so quick. When I saw that tonight, I was like, wow, like you found a way to do it, because Vince McMahon is obviously on the outside at current, even though sometimes when I watch the TV and the people losing in the half time and some of the shitty finishes and all that sort of stuff, it feels exactly the same, but whatever. You would be unsurprised if he was back, but yeah, there's enough to it that they try and then cut it away from, this is not WWE, this is all about Vince McMahon. And it's like, again, it's like the Janelle Grant case. There are multiple defendants listed.
Yep.
And, and it'll be the same with the Ring Boys one as well. I'm sure coverage of that, they will attempt to have it as in, this is all about Vince McMahon and Linda McMahon, and not about the company's kind of liability and responsibility to these people. And therefore, in this case and other cases, in terms of compensation as well. So that's kind of where we're up to on that. But yeah, please go and read the post summary of everything that's happened, because obviously Brandon Thurston especially has been right on that since the start. But another company that's kind of a little bit all over the place this week is home of your special little guy at TNA.
Oh, my precious, most beloved and beautiful son, Mr. Elegance. Yes. Total nonstop action. Yes.
Is that just Mr. Elegance or the company?
That's one of the worst jokes I've ever heard you make. I've never heard you make a joke that bad before in my life. And even as you said it, you made this pained face like you knew that it was a terrible joke. And you were immediately ashamed of what you come out of your mouth.
How much can I play with it being after midnight? I need to play fucking everything. That was awful. God.
It's very late. It's very late for us.
Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Oh no. This is worse than anything I come out with in Japan.
Okay.
No. Right.
TNA
anyway,
this week. They announced the departure of Steve Macklin, who had a loser leaves town match. He was one of the only people they still had left under some kind of contract, and they did a loser leaves town angle with him, and then he didn't leave town.
Yeah, they call it like feast or fired.
Yeah, he was whatever. Feast or fired. Fucking thank you. And he stuck around, and now he's gone. And they also lost a woman too, a woman
Another
wrestler.
One?
Yep. No,
Marla Grace.
Yes, thank you. I was like, where the hell is the name? Yes, and Mr. Elegance beat their women's knockouts champion.
Of course, yeah.
In a match last week.
So.
I'm sorry. They had Mr. Elegance beat their women's champion. Oh my God.
And this is broken down, isn't it? Oh no. Mr. Elegance ruins the show. Part 3.
Or does he save it, Trish? Or does he save it?
No one can save TNA at this point. Stop it.
No, I thought you meant our show.
Oh, our show? Oh, no one can save that.
I want to just do I want to do like a timestamp where I'm like, Sarah laughs about Mr. Elegance, and it's like 4 minutes long. Okay.
This is like the end of the last episode where I was like, we've taken like where Leo was like, did you like take some laughing gas or something? What did you take? And I'm like, I don't know. This is what he does to.
He has that effect on women. They hear his name and they just start laughing uncontrollably. Every man wants that.
He needs to put that on a t-shirt. Okay, we lost it.
Okay, sorry. We're back to it.
Yep.
We're a serious podcast.
We're a serious podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
How the fuck does Rich put up with us? Right. So, Steve Macklin asked for his release this week and was granted it. He actually asked the company not to promote it. Wanted it quietly.
Don't tell anyone I've left. Oh,
well, but he was trying to
put out a press release.
So they put out a press release because...
Because they're messy bitches. Just saying, they're messy bitches.
But they didn't, and Myla Grace wasn't even informed that they were going to put the press release with her name on it either. So they put both of their names out. Myla Grace is the latest of a string of women who have left the promotion. Like a lot of things are being left at Carla Silver's door. Obviously, women's booking. I wouldn't expect it to be stronger. People that have booking women, and currently they're or in booking in general. You've got someone who was in ECW for a long time, not exactly a strong point with booking women, and someone who worked for Ring of Honor for a long time. Like these things explain themselves somewhat. But I think it's a combination of that, and there is the way that division's treated currently, which is compared to a few years ago where people were telling you TNA had the the best women's division in the world.
I remember that. I was like, some of these people don't watch TNA.
No, but even then, like the comparison between then and now is quite vast. So, and it's also, you still have this issue that they signed this TV deal. There has been no change in terms of contract amounts. There have been no change in terms of contract lengths. They're still running on far too many short-term contracts, and there are still far too many pay-per-date deals, which, as we said in the last episode, I think are a fucking joke. That you can't, having people that are supposed to be kind of limited to your promotion, and the fact that you can then pull them for independent dates whether they can't wrestle, wrestlers from AEW or wherever. Like it is an absolute joke to be doing that on pay-per-date contract. It's not acceptable. There should be no sort of like, you just shouldn't do it. It's like,
if they're not on guaranteed money, you can't fucking pull days from them. That's bullshit. Come on.
And obviously, like, they still have monetary pressures because you're letting people go left and right. Would you be doing that if you weren't? No. So, the ability that this may be more potentially of an ad share deal than it may be 5 to 10 million, as they originally said, that comes more and more kind of likelihood the more that we see. The fact that they never really released a proper number, just kind of hearsay, also suggests that. But it's more talent kind of gone from their roster. They've now got Mike Santana's contract up in the next couple of months, as we all expected. So he will be expected to move on. You can't see him staying there yet. No one actually knows who he's wrestling at Slammiversary, which is 3.5 weeks away.
Yeah. And you people want me to go to that? Like, no, I'm not doing it.
Oh, it might be Dolph Ziggler cashing in. So isn't that like the dad of Mr. Elegance? Is that
No.
Well, no, I don't mean literally, but it's like,
you
need to
see
that
spiritual father of Mr. Elegance.
Yeah, you need to see that gimmick in like 2011 and stuff when he was doing all the. Yeah, no, you don't.
These are some deep questions.
Indeed, but they've got that going on. They've got 1,300 tickets out in Boston
at the Agganis Arena. They're at they're at a larger venue than AEW is for their Collision and Dynamite shows in July.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're a bigger venue because that's at the music theatre, isn't it?
Yep.
But something that is noticeable to me is that if you think about all the promotional efforts and you think about everything that they were doing last year on the way to a TV deal, and everything that was going on around Slammiversary in New York, and everything that went on in Bound for Glory when I was up, in your kind of direction, and the amount of press that was going on, the amount of organisation that there seems to be, do you not think it's interesting that has pretty much disappeared this year? There's like no organisation, there seems to be no kind of push, and that seems to have transferred to AAA in terms of them pursuing a TV deal?
Mm.
And it makes me wonder who was really kind of behind that push, because now all that focus seems to be on AAA, and we're trying to push them through, and that's why they're getting the spots on Netflix and that sort of thing. Obviously, we don't see TNA talent on even on NXT so much now, let alone on anything else. We see very limited NXT talent on TNA now. It just seems like, oh, it's done. Then we move on to the next thing, and you wonder if that infusion was their company or all coming from WWE, because that's kind of how it feels. It now feels like it's just been cast aside, and they're still stuck with that deal. They're still locked in with WWE in terms of, and then they would still have kind of first refusal for any sort of sale. But it's like, it very much feels like it feels like pointless to say, because we've said so many times, like, TNA has been like the cockroach of wrestling in the last 20 years, where every time you thought it was going to die, it survived, right? But this doesn't feel sustainable, and it's hard to see how it could be sustainable when you've got their talent out there, giving kind of half, not like even rah-rah speeches, but giving kind of like, oh, like, it doesn't matter what you're hearing, guys, we're all looking forward to Slammiversary or something. When is that all healthy? It's like the fucking Restored Us feeling shit all over again, isn't it?
Yep.
Like, you're basically illustrating that there are so many problems underneath. And when, if you look at that company and you think, okay, there should be like nominal attractions to it. It should now be able to pay a wage that's bigger than like what MLW are paying or whatever. Right. And it should allow these people to get TV exposure, but also get that understanding of how TV works. If you're a young person, coming in to that company, if you're making that choice to come to the US or stay in the US, if you're growing up there rather than going to the East and learning to get your trade basically in Japan and all your reps, then the choice that you're doing there is to like learn TV and look. And you can think, okay, maybe it's potentially avenue into WWE, but there are many other avenues that may pay you much better and not have you in the same situation.
Right.
And I think that it's hard to see what they think their kind of place is. Is this it? They think we have a deal now, that's it, we just move on. I guess I don't think we were under any kind of feeling that we ever thought that this was going to be something else once they got the TV deal, or they were going to move forward. I guess we questioned it, questioned some of their statements, but they seem to be more interested at the moment in making statements about Forbidden Door being on the same day as Slammiversary, or them potentially stealing venues when WWE have just put their Money in the Bank PLE on the same weekend as Bound for Glory. So we'll wonder if we get the same interviews for that. But yeah, it just feels like there's no effort going in. There's people leaving left and right, and there's a story underneath it. There's a story underneath here, and we're kind of seeing the things hit the surface. And it'll be now. It's a case of what happens next. But it's again, we need a strong. And we're not going to get it because of the partnership they have with WWE, but you need a strong third company somewhere. We need more opportunities for people, because we need more places where people can learn to work and get reps, and not just learn to work, but learn to work TV in a way that's not under pressure, because that's part of the issues we were talking to development earlier, is that you're seeing all these people go through these growth stages where most people in the past would have been still learning with less people's eyes on them. You have that ability to make mistakes, and that's something where TNA could be quite valuable in that development process. And it's not there because they're not paying people. Yeah.
It's, you jobbed out all your people to people on NXT, and now nobody wants to watch your show anymore.
But then you do stupid things, like you have Leon Slater, who could potentially be your longest running X Division champion, and you make him fall just short because he's going at some point. And It's like, you're supposed to encourage people to go there. It's because you're going to only be a stepping stone company, then make sure you can do that as a talent. Like, why would you? Why would you go there right now? It's like, anytime there is a place that feels like it's on a downward trend, or you can't guarantee employment for long periods, then yeah, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. Right, and finally, this is a very business-orientated episode today.
Well, we're a very business-orientated podcast. Serious business podcast. I'm excited to talk about this because I really like when Western wrestling fans / podcasters / news people try to talk about Japanese business practices. I think it's one of my favorite. Not you, because you actually know what you're talking about. It was a good time. Yes, New Japan has been sold, Bushiroad has transferred all of its stock in New Japan Pro Wrestling to TV Asahi and Cyber Agent. And now not all, but 3 of the big new Japanese wrestling promotions are all underneath the same company's ownership.
Sort of.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get
this
into
is what
that.
causes US people to lose their minds.
Yeah, so May 27th, we kind of woke up to the news that Bushiroad have transferred all of their stock to TV Asahi and Cyber Agent, as you said. Bushiroad had previously owned 70% of New Japan stock that they got from Ukes in 2012, and they basically passed on 10,500,400 shares. Will do on June 30th between the other 2 companies. So TV Asahi are the longest partner of New Japan. They have been their media partner in Japan for pretty much the whole duration of the company as a television broadcasting company. And they already owned 22.7% of the company's shares at that point before this one. So they've moved their kind of stock holding up to 46.3%, and that's been matched by Cyber Agent. And Cyber Agent are a massive media company in Japan, but also games and that sort of thing as well. They have their hands in many pies. And yeah, as you mentioned, they also own Cyberfight, and Cyberfight is the company that owns DDT, TJPW, and Pro Wrestling Noah, that they acquired in 2019. So it's kind of like a complicated one because there's so many companies kind of involved. And when they talk about the value of it, so the shares that were kind of sold are valued around in US dollars, like 22.6 million. So if you then applied that to like 100% of the share value for the company, it'd look like $32 million, and that feels like nothing, right? Because you look at like WWE's like Q1 revenue, like I think their revenue increased by like $84 million in Q1. Yeah. Like, so 32 million just feels just like absolute. Yeah. No, not even for the year. That's just for Q1. Just for Q1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? And then you've got New Japan basically being sold for, a quarter of that. But I think there's some kind of really important things to note on that. And it's like, in terms of the shares and that sort of thing, like that's not the entire value of the company.
No.
So the most valuable parts of New Japan would be like the footage library, which obviously is part owned by TVSA, and things like their other assets and kind of buildings, that sort of thing. So when someone says that, they purchased it for this amount and that's the entire value of the company, that's not correct. It's the value of the shareholding in the company, so the operation shares. So it's kind of complicated, and some of that's because lots of things in Japan are not owned by one person. So when we actually look at these 2 companies, this is where it gets real complicated. So Cyber Agent actually own 8% of TV Asahi, and TV Asahi own just close to 37% of the streaming service of Cyber Agent, which is called Abema. And Abema is like a cross between YouTube and kind of Amazon Prime, I guess. So it's a service where you can watch clips, you can watch shows, and then you can watch, pay-per-view products, that sort of thing. So because the kind of traditional Western products don't have as much hold in Japan as what they do elsewhere, so they pretty much have their own ecosystem. So that's kind of what that is. So, but that's what I think. So you've got these companies, they're not just like, people that have just come in separately. They are companies that are completely intertwined already within their media landscape. And obviously within wrestling because of Cyber Agent owning Cyberfight. So it's like, it's all mixed up. It's not like you can separate all these things off. They're all mixed up. But it's kind of an interesting one because, when like something like this happens, you start to look back at all these other things that have happened and then you go, oh yeah, okay, I kind of understand why that happened now, and maybe we didn't. And there's actually loads of things where you can look at it and you can start to think, okay, this is maybe coming some time. So Bushiroad started messing about last summer with their kind of divisions amongst their company, and they combined like their live entertainment and sports division, which you don't normally do unless you're going to drop some assets out of there. And then a couple of months ago, they separated Stardom from New Japan, which was only like a couple of years ago that they put Stardom as basically a subsidiary of New Japan. So we probably should have seen something there. And at the same time, TBSI released their they called it their startup management plan. It's very, very Japanese kind of thing. And that talked about that talked about some of their aims being around progressing towards kind of a global distribution for their products and targeting for 2029 to develop their sports IP regarding quite like basketball, professional wrestling, skateboarding, and breaking, which is like the break dancing thing they have in the Olympics, right? Which is kind of cool. But I think for the idea for them is that in that regard is like it's a global IP that they get with New Japan. You know, it's something that they already have development on. They are always been part of New Japan World. So that's a platform that you can potentially, upgrade and then use straight to your kind of international markets. They don't need to do anything to develop that kind of international audience in terms of having access to their kind of media platform. You can develop the platform to then hopefully encourage more. So it fits within their kind of plan. But they put that out in February, and then in April, we had Aaron Wolf doing a judo challenge show on Abima, which probably should have raised more eyebrows than it should, because that kind of came out of nowhere. And Wolf has been, his coming into the company was very much part of the TBSR. He were very much involved in that too. So the way you have to look at this is it makes sense kind of for all parties. So for Bushiroad, New Japan going out that last quarter, which is their quarter 3, and theirs fiscal years are different for each company involved in this, which is a bit weird. But you had the Tanahashi Dome show. They made 330 million yen more than they did in the same quarter last year. It's a nice place to leave it, because when they're looking at their forecast and they're looking at the last year or the year 2 or 3 years, they're looking and saying, this is not a product that is going to grow as part of our stock at the moment. It's not a product that's going to get bigger. It's not a product that's going to deliver better results than it did in the last few years. And for a small company or a smaller company like Bushiroad, who rely on that thing for their share price, it's a perfect time to get rid of it, because you can save face as well. You're leaving it on a high. You can literally look at Bushiroad as like the mirroring really the Tanahashi kind of era in the company, of when Tanahashi kind of became to the very top of New Japan as a sustained kind of top babyface for a long period, in 2012 onwards, and then all the way to kind of the end of his career. So it gives them the right kind of place to get out without losing any face for them and without losing any face for the company, and that's kind of important there. And then it gives TVSI and Cyber Agent the ability to pick up this content and essentially for their kind of product to have more hands-on approach to a product that they already have influence in, and get it at a price that may have been cheaper than doing a content deal, essentially. So it kind of works for all parties. And then for New Japan, essentially, it's the idea of getting investment in a way that they couldn't get from Bushiroad, who, it didn't play to their strengths, that product at this point, especially once they found themselves kind of hitting a brick wall of international expansion, in 2019, 2020, obviously with the birth of AEW and everything else that's happened since. So it kind of fits for everybody. So it does make sense to kind of move on at this point. There are other questions, obviously. There's lots of things that we won't know until after June 30th. We just won't know until that kind of stock movement is completed and we see things happen. But there's so much intertwining between the companies as they were that then you then have to kind of work it out there. So obviously the big thing is that the split with Stardom, and Stardom stays with Bushiroad because it makes more sense for Bushiroad. They fit into their card kind of TCG kind of operations. They have a lot more factions. It's easier to do that sort of thing. It's a product with lower overheads. Famously obviously there's something, we still got a big pay gap between top men's and women's companies in Japan that still needs to be worked on, but it's lower overheads as it is, and it's a company that is profitable. It's making more money than it was before. We've seen that with attendances this year. So it's still on a growth phase, and that suits them and where they are currently. So it makes sense for them to keep hold of that product for where they are and not to palm it off with New Japan. There are people who work for Stardom who are currently directors in New Japan. So Taro Okada, president of Stardom, he's a director with New Japan. There have been other people there as well. So obviously that all needs to be sorted out. And there will be people that have been employed, especially in their office, that were Bushiroad people as well. So they all kind of need to be kind of their job roles are they're the people that feel most at risk. They're the people that are most kind of scared by everything, because obviously every time you go through a merger or any time that you go through a transition, your jobs are in the office and most likely be able to review. The wrestlers are more seen as kind of assets, so it's a difficult time for them, because you will have people, and you've got people there from TVSI already. You've got directors on the board from TVSI. The person that does the audits is the same person as TVSI. They do the same job for both. So there is some kind of cross-play already, but you will look at, will they look to merge jobs? Will they look to bring their own people in from, the TV side to then be more kind of influential now in terms of that product? Or will it be left alone? But where that's probably going to happen the most is on the office. So that's where probably the most nervousness is at the moment. The women's titles are continuing. That's not going away at this point. And there's no reason to, it's kind of funny because I see people say, does that mean we're going to get this talent from Pro Wrestling Noah in New Japan? Or we're going to get this talent from DDT in New Japan? And it's like, not obviously they don't mention NJPW so much because it's malpromotion. And it's kind of like, we do so anyway. Today is they've just done the crossover show with DDT, the Insane show this morning. They have Takeshita on a trio deal, wrestling for everybody. They have, they've done multiple shows with people from Pro Wrestling Noah in the last year, especially around Tanahashi's retirement and Tanahashi Jam. They've had people on Excursion in Noah, like Oiwa was in Excursion in Noah. There's never been this kind of thing where it's like, we've never had access to these people. They did joint shows with Noah for a couple of years just around the end of the pandemic. It's like, I don't know how much the relationship will change because these barriers aren't there to begin with. New Japan has always been the top dog, and it still has that relationship with the rest of the Japanese scene. Look at the Dome. They got Naito. Okay, he walks in with his GHC tag belts everywhere and takes forever. But it's like, you thought that door was closed and 6 months later it's not. So they still always have that kind of opportunity. So it's not going to change any of those relationships. At the current time, they are saying it will not change anything in terms of relationship with like AEW or anything as such. And it was kind of funny because they released the, AEW's going on my AEW on August 31st. And I was like, oh my God, they're not ever working with AEW ever again. And you're like... No, it doesn't really change, but that's more about what they want to do with their product. But yeah, essentially the key things is that TV Asahi will be running the company as their operating subsidiary. Cyber Agent are more an investment in this firm, and likelihood is that they may pick up content when WWE leaves their service later in the year to go to Netflix, because that's where, once all international deals, where they have to go. So they had a content gap for a pro wrestling company, and the likelihood is that there will be additional, content that goes to Abema that will fulfill that gap. And then they can also advertise things like New Japan World on that service as well, in the same way they do Wrestle Universe. But it will operate under TV Asahi and not under Cyber Agent. So it's not like they are exactly sat in the same company as Pro Wrestling Noah and DDT and TJPW. They're kind of sat somewhat alongside, but kind of above and sideways. So, but it is all complicated how it's all put together. Should we do some questions? Because that's probably the easiest way to do this.
Sure.
Yeah? I've got to scroll down now. I'll do one just before we answer the list of questions from the Discord. So a lot of people have asked kind of how do the wrestlers and the office staff feel. Obviously, we discussed the office staff were a little bit more apprehensive about everything, as you'd expect. The wrestlers were pretty much like... could have been dancing in the street the day it was announced, to be honest. They are happy because they had the promise of investment on that day. They had a meeting at the before the Best of Super Junior show on that night, and they'd like to see kind of similar production and sort of investment that we saw into Pro Wrestling Noah when they were acquired by Cyberfight, who then suddenly had the best production out of anybody in the entire Japanese wrestling scene. And also, there's two parts to it. So you have that promise of investment with that, and then with wages as well. And most people are on 3-year deals. They all signed 3-year deals early on in the year, which, could also be a sign potentially of a sale, because that's the sort of thing where you close up your assets to make sure, the value you're providing. But it's, so there isn't that thing yet, but the hope is that it will help to, increase wages in the longer term, because TV company will essentially see them as, production. So costs can be sunk in a different way. It doesn't have to be as budget kind of killing as what we've seen with Bushiroad. And we did see that even when they were at their height. The wages weren't there for a lot of people in Japan, or especially people coming in from outside, and that's why even some of their top talent before AEW would have left to go to WWE, or did leave to go to WWE, because the wages weren't there. So there is the hope of that, and frankly, for a lot of them, it's just getting rid of Kadani. So the Bushiroad Honto was pretty much hated by a lot of talent. Obviously, that all blew up quite a lot this year, publicly, because we saw the Okada comments with Yano just after the Dome, where he basically said no one thanked me or any sort of thing, and it's not quite true. I mean, he got standing ovation at Wrestle Kingdom, but not from Bushiroad. That's his point, and they were basically talking about his influence in the booking and how much he hated him, and Kadani's seen as a key reason why Okada left New Japan. And also with the incident at New Beginning, which was, the way it was put to us, complete screaming match where Tsuji cut the promo on we're not just trading cards, and then that ended up in a bit of a what's the word, it wasn't an altercation, no one got hit, but it was like, it was a screaming match after, but it just showed the level of frustration that there was with the management system as it was. So they'll be happy to get rid of that. Obviously, you've always got to be under the impression that you never know what's going to be worse,
Yeah.
You never know who else is going to come in and be in that role. But I think they're under the hope that they will kind of be left alone, more than kind of have someone else fulfill that role in the sort of way that Kadani did before. Doesn't think there'll be any major booking changes at the current, and that would fit with, cyber agent kind of take over and Noah, that sort of thing. So it's unlikely that we're going to see any of that for the foreseeable. So if you think you're going to get rid of Gato straight away, I'm sorry, it's not happening. It's not something. So Tanahashi spoke about it. He says it's pretty much what we were told. By that, it's day-to-day operations as it is, and then obviously we'll see how changes kind of shake up. But most of the changes that are expected currently would be just more TV dates on national TV, like they've got for Dominion upcoming, and that sort of thing. It's not, you're not looking to see major structural changes in their day-to-day anytime soon. So that's kind of where that's at. I was going to make my joke on this originally. I was going to say, the big news from New Japan. I was like, Yoda Suji's got an Instagram.
It's a very nice Instagram.
We're enjoying it, yeah. Do you want to pick a couple of questions out of here?
Let me see.
You do that better than me.
So the big question from Seth Rich Rogan that I think is important is, does this change meaningfully affect their ability to retain talent? Which I think is a big question with New Japan over the last couple of years.
So I think they've already made some efforts to change that in terms of having these longer deals, which give people stability. That's something that they talked about prior to the new year. So again, you can't really say if this is because they were preparing for a sale or something that was like a new agreement or not. But it was something that needs to happen, because when you're doing these 1-year rolling contracts, you can't give people the stability to then be able to plan out their lives for a sustained period of time. And then you've always got someone kind of obviously thinking about it. And it's the same with your creative, you're thinking, I need to be this because I need to be in the strongest position possible for a year, in a year's time. Whereas if you've got a few years, you're more than happy to kind of take your turn in terms of the top of the roster and see what happens. So those were pretty important. In terms of retention going forward, they are never going to compete with the US wages as they are currently. No. Like for the very, very top people, so say like someone like Will Ospreay when he was leaving, you're not going to be able to pay, I don't know, 3.5 million, 4 million. You're just not going to do that. No. They do not have that ability. Where they can compete potentially, depending on what level of investment there is the people that, get offered quite frankly, because it's happened this year. 110k to go to NXT, and those sort of people. And those people aren't just limited to being foreign workers as well. We've got New Japan talent in NXT now, in Evil space. Obviously, he's going to be a main roster deal. And then, you could see Hiromu go there on a similar deal to what someone else was offered. So it's those sort of people that you really should just be paying more at home. And yes, they're earning a decent wage compared to Japanese wages, but in a global sense, and these people at this point are global wrestlers, you can be paying that wage. So the hope is, I think, that the stability of the longer contracts will make a difference. Obviously, most people are under them now, so it's going to be some period of time before we see that. And then also retaining some of your kind of top Japanese talent that you probably don't need to pay an absolute fortune to in order to retain. And actually, it's been a bit of an excuse to not retaining some of these people has not been kind of as harshly judged as it potentially should have been in the last few years. And the other part to that is when it comes to bringing in, talent from elsewhere, is keep your promises. So you'd hope that this would allow them to keep your promises. So when they plan out someone potentially for a G1, as they did last year, there was 2 AEW names last year that never came, and they were kind of ghosted, and that's not good for your relationship with other people. It's not a good relationship with talent. This should hopefully allow them to be able to bring in names that they think are going to add value, because that's very important to them, or familiarity, which helps them there as well. But also, build that relationship with people by not treating them poorly. And again, that goes back again to the kind of the Bushi Road kind of feeling that wasn't just about people that worked there, but also people that worked elsewhere. So yeah, hopefully they can do that.
There's a similar one here from Takesy, who was from Kaze, I beg your pardon. If the investment comes in, who should New Japan target in the wrestler market? So similar to are they going to retain talent? More like, are they going to go after free agents?
The thing about them going after free agents, and obviously, everyone's expecting Shun Skywalker from Dragon Gate to walk in there, probably maybe next week. But it's like they've always had pretty much the pick of people within the Japanese scene, in the Mo wrestling scene there. They do that thing where people have to kind of disappear when they come back, and we've seen Dragon Gate release kind of a nasty statement about one of their wrestlers who's leaving and presumed to come to New Japan. So they've always had that. I don't see them being able to pursue somebody like big from outside New Japan. And I think it's more that they get those interactions right than it is, we need to go and get somebody from a major US company, because they can't compete like that. And I don't see that changing. If they do think they can really compete on a global basis, they would need to. And that's not like the, AEW need to sign Roman Reigns or something. But you would need like a focal point name in the West, let's be honest, in order to kind of, if you wanted to compete in that way. But it's more of a case of, with this, they can still pretty much sign who they want, but it's then about what you do with them. And that's been their big problem for how many years now? They've not elevated their own younger talent. They've not had them be put over older talent who have then left the company because either they can get paid more elsewhere, disagreements with management, or not willing to be side attractions rather than being in the main event, which was part of the Naito thing along with money last year. So it's more about what they do with them now, and they've got to push these people as stars. And I think, as much as I can see very much reasons to be critical of the back and forth title booking with Aaron Wolf and with Yoda Tsuji that will be kind of pulled back next week, it's like they're trying to establish them as their two kind of names for the mainstream. They're the people that are going to be the focus of TVSR, national broadcast next time. We're also part of the broadcast for Wrestle Kingdom. So that's the people they're really kind of pushing in that thing. But you have to be dedicated to them, because that has to be an illustration to people, to go there the same way as we talked about with WWE earlier. And it's a similar thing. They're always going to pay more. They're always going to pay more than Dragon Gate. They're going to pay more than Noah. They're going to pay more than All Japan. They're going to pay more than, whoever, you name it. So you always have that attraction. But if you really want the top people to go there and continue to go there, and not feel about going to the US or going somewhere else or just being comfortable and staying where they are, then you have to prove why they need to do it. And that's hard because the book is not changing, and there's been a lot of reliance on trying to book the old mid-carders and push them up the card, but they've already been seen in their spot. So hopefully with this change, it should give them a little bit more leeway to kind of get that development done, but they really do need to focus on Suji and on Aaron Wolf for the remainder of this year and into next year, and then kind of build around that. And then you bring in everybody else to kind of compensate that, and people you think are going to add to your roster, because you still have your own development system to build from as well. So.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that you have not covered already. I feel like you've pretty much answered everything in here.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I saw that I wanted to cover is that people worried about the idea of being monopoly, because obviously this moves New Japan under the same umbrella as other cyber agent properties under the Cyber Fight subsidiary. So obviously we talked about, and especially, so the thing about that is that yeah, the world's getting smaller. You know, we've got WWE with ownership or a say in TNA, AAA, and kind of unofficial pipeline with Progress. We'll see how that, obviously, with their ownership change, makes a difference or not. They also have, a relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah. We'll see how that continues once, WWE content is off of Beamer. But it's not really in Japanese companies' thing to just demolish a relationship. They tend to try and keep it. So you have that. Then we have, AEW with Ring of Honor, with connection with CMLL, connection with Stardom, connection with New Japan, connection with some of the independents around the US that we're seeing start to be added to my AEW, and whether that will kind of become a replacement for Triller, connection to Rev Pro. But, in terms of ownership, really just Ring of Honor. And then we now have this where we have, rather than kind of two bigger groups at the top of Japanese wrestling in terms of owned by big conglomerates, we've now got kind of 4 companies linked under one banner. So you would think, the world's getting smaller, and you worry about homogenization. And I think with AAA, that's kind of a big kind of concern that we've seen kind of play out. But with this, the thing about the Japanese system is it's so rigid, and everyone has to kind of own base, that it would be very unlikely to see this kind of all become like one super touring kind of company, or something that would be like, it would change dramatically, because it's like, they're like football clubs. That's the only way I can describe it. Like, I always say, like, it's just a TV show, it's not your football club when it comes to US wrestling, right? And we see more people treat it as like a football club. But in Japan, it kind of is. Like, people have the promotion they support. They have the promotion that they go and watch. And whether that's DDT, or whether that's Noah, whether that's New Japan, whether that's TJPW, All Japan, whatever, that is it. And it's the same. They all do the same bookings. They all have a relationship with the same venues. They all have their relationship with their, whoever produces their content and puts it out there. Like, these things are all kind of set in such a way that it would be really difficult to kind of fuse everything together. And as I said previously, like, there's already these established kind of talent relationships. It's not like there's a barrier between all these things. So it's, we have bigger and bigger companies owning more and more of the same product, and that is globally a bad thing, and is something that, we're going to talk about more and more as the years go by, I'm sure. But in terms of like this, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference on the ground in Japan. I don't think it's going to change a massive amount. Hopefully we see some of the expertise that was in Cyber Agent that went into the Cyber Fight properties for in terms of production, and we see some of that in New Japan. And that their hope will be that, the idea of using Japan, New Japan as the kind of global IP that you can market quickest across, and if you can build that, then it would hopefully open, people's eyes to other products in Japan, and maybe that works better than, they don't look at themselves and separate themselves off like WWE did for all those years. But it's just, it works differently, and it's hard to kind of say, I hate monopolization, I hate these things all being kind of put into one, but I'm okay with this. But at the moment, it's just a different system. It just operates differently, and you won't see, I don't think, any sort of threat or anything. You're not going to see any of these other promotions become like New Japan Mark II in the way that AAA has, you know?
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing. Yeah, it's difficult. In a global sense, it's difficult to look at, to see these kind of things becoming kind of more corporate entities. But that's more, it just feels like reality at the moment. Yeah. Did you see the question for Prince where he asked us who's the gold ship in New Japan, which is the most eccentric, favorite character from an anime that I had to look up because I know fuck all about anime.
Yeah, I don't know anything about anime either.
Yeah, I don't know anything, but it was like, it was described as everyone's favorite eccentric, and I was like, should we just piss off like everyone that watches the Best of Super Junior finals and say, isn't that Yo? Didn't he just do like the biggest attendance like in Otta since like Liger's retirement? Is he the most favorite eccentric? Like our friend Frankie had like a woman crying, absolute so happy crying like next to him. Like, so it was 7% women for the Best of Super Junior final. But maybe it should.
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like,
yeah,
because I was asking, I was like, why is he connecting? Because sometimes you watch it and you go, why? I don't get it. And rather than just being like, I hate it, which is easy to do, it's like, I don't get it. Why? And it's like, he's been around for a while, and it's like, he looks like an idol guy and stuff. And I'm like, so many of them do, but I don't know. But that's one to keep an eye on. So maybe it's him right now. They have like a yo and no campaign, and I'm quite enjoying that because I'm just not really that bothered by it. So it's kind of funny to watch. But so yeah, I think that's pretty much everything for now. So obviously there's quite a lot of detail to it. We still got quite a lot of things to kind of catch up on. At the moment though, from a wrestler standpoint, it's they're feeling pretty positive, and it'd just be about what that investment leads to, and if that allows them to kind of grow globally and take a bit more pressure off them in terms of developing their talent. But there's no instant booking kind of crutches that will save everything. They have to work hard at this now. Suji should win next week, and he shouldn't lose that belt, and he should win at Dome. They have to really enforce that. He's definitely proved himself for the first part of this year to be the right guy to be in that spot. So you do that, and you go from there. And and Aaron Wolf is the guy he's the crossover man. He's the guy that's in all the houses in Japan, and you have to turn that into something from a monetary value now, and go through the rest of this year, and we'll see how he does in a G1. That's going to be something. He's going to be like Performance Center a little bit. He's going to be rehearsed, some of those matches and stuff. That will happen. They're already looking at how they're going to do that. So it's like, but him being in the G1 obviously is the big attraction of the G1 this year, and you have to make that count. Like, we can't just keep waiting anymore. You have to get on with it. And I understand the point of doing the double shows with the Dome and then doing this one with having the two kind of title wins and stuff, but they're just moments if you don't follow them up. Yeah. We'll see. We'll get up on next Sunday and we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Dominion. Right, I think that's it. It's very late. It's 10 to 2. Oh my God.
It's 10 to 9.
Yeah, for both of us, that's a disaster. We need to be done. So this has been a very business-orientated episode of the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. We are produced by the wonderful Leah of Tunnel Talk, who has done a very good job not battering me over the last day for not being able to use a computer or sort it out. So thank you very much, Leah, for that. You can check out Leah and as well as Ali and Anna on our, I shouldn't say favourite Social Suplex podcast. Will I get done for that?
Oh. But it is. They were our sisters before we were part of the Social Suplex Network.
Yeah, we don't forget where we came from. Mm-hmm. We don't forget. But anyway, you can listen to Tunnel Talk. I'm getting enough trouble now. Every Sunday for your latest on storyline developments, characters, and everything else AEW. You can also listen to all the other great podcasts on our network that we've just second-tiered to Tunnel Talk. Jesus Christ. We're on Red Circle or wherever you find your podcasts. You can also find us, as well as all the other hosts on the network, on the Social Suplex Discord. Come in, speak to us, find out what's going on, World Cup season's coming on, so that's going to be dominating. Sorry, guys. What is a wrestling? But you can find us over there at socialsuplex.com for the Discord link and also for the Social Suplex newsletter. As we mentioned at the start, come in and see Eric's fantastic piece on Diana at the moment on our exclusive page and catch up with the latest newsletter there at socialsuplex.com. You can email us at trishandsarahpod@gmail.com if you have any questions, any queries, want to send any feedback. You can also find us on Twitter at Trish and Sarah on Twitter, and also over on Blue Sky under our own names, because it's never getting fixed, and that's now a running gag to go with Mr. Elegance. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Guess that takes us after Dominion, but just before Forbidden Door, so that's kind of an interesting time, isn't it? And so we'll see how we go then. So thank you for listening. Until then, I have been Trish.
I've been Sarah.
And this has been... What episode are we on?
I don't know. 63? 64?
Something like that, yeah. Well, this has been an episode of the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.